Hello and welcome to Real Opinions, and today I'm going to be reviewing Logan. Now I'm a massive fan of, obviously I'm a massive fan of superhero movies, and I have a weird allegiance to the Fox superhero movies. For some reason, I don't know, everyone seems to kind of hate them and want them to give the X-Men back to Marvel, but I think Fox have done consistently great things. Like, yeah, okay, they've had the X-Men Origins, they had the Fantastic Four, whatever, but between Deadpool, Days of Future Past, First Class, X-Men 2, and all these things, I think they've done really great, interesting stuff, and they've allowed their filmmakers to kind of go in their own direction and do something that feels personal. I love Marvel, I love the MCU stuff, but sometimes that can feel very much like designed by committee, whereas I think Fox sometimes feel a bit riskier. And with that in mind, I have to say that I absolutely loved Logan. I thought this was one of the best superhero films I've seen in years, if not the best that I've seen. I thought it was risky, I thought it was brave, I thought it was really impressively restrained in lots of respects, and I thought it also worked as both a genuinely compelling character drama and as an awesome superhero movie. I could not be happier with this film. In terms of risks, I think that it really does commit to telling quite an adult, dark, and sometimes emotionally troubling story. We get a lot of dark, gritty superhero films every now and then, particularly like the stuff that DC's doing, but they always feel like moody, posy, kind of mainstream dark. Like, they're never gonna really deeply upset you or anything. They're just kind of dark in that Dark Knight way. They want to be taken seriously. They want to sort of show off that they're not the light, fun, colourful Marvel films. But with Logan, it genuinely goes to some really dark, disturbing, and as I said before, brave places. There's a lot of things about this film that I thought were really, really kind of risky for a big budget superhero film. I know that its budget is less than other X-Men films have been because of the R rating, but it's still a big budget, massive film with famous actors based on an established IP, and it really does take chances. Not just in terms of the fact that, oh, it's violent, oh, it's got swearing. I mean, like, the story is quite slow paced, resists the urge for the most part to throw other mutants in, or to throw other, like, elements from the X-Men mythos. It's like someone went, we're going to tell this story, and then the studio let them just tell that story in the way they wanted to tell it without kind of going, oh, you need to put this character in, you need to put that in. It was just like, yeah, okay, you tell it, even if it is a smaller story, even if it is one that's less bombastic and perhaps one that it doesn't feel like people were worrying over it in the way that something like Suicide Squad did, where like there was obviously studios and execs there behind the scenes going, oh, no, we need to change this, we need to edit it, we need to make it look like this, we need to make this happen, and everything. Like, this felt like James Mangold came to them with a pitch and they went, yeah, you can do that, and they let him. It's smart, I think it's really well written, and I think at times it borders on emotionally profound. I would say this is the most emotionally resonant superhero film I've ever seen, which, maybe isn't saying a lot. I mean, I love superhero films, and I definitely get emotionally affected from them, but that's usually happiness, like just the happiness of having seen a film that I enjoyed, rather than necessarily emotionally connecting to characters. But here I really was feeling something because the characters were feeling it. It reminded me of Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. It was the last time I felt like this about a blockbuster, where I was just emotionally hooked, and I didn't mind that the pacing was slow, because I just liked spending time with the characters, and I was just immersed in the story and in the world. I think that it is genuinely, at times, an upsetting film, but it does that wonderful thing of balancing the dark, depressing subject matter with just the tiniest bit of hope. In the middle, like particularly in the middle act of this film, there's a bit where Logan, Professor X, and the little girl that you've seen in the trailer, they kind of go on a road trip, and everything's still kind of, there's very little hope for these characters, but there's just enough. And I find that quite a powerful emotion at times, when everything is like at its lowest point, but people find just teensy little rays of hope. And this film kind of did that in a way that I found really quite warm, affecting, and beautiful at times. The acting is superb. This is easily the best that Hugh Jackman's been ever in an X-Men film. There was a time when he was the cool, super badass character that you really loved, like in X-Men 2. And then as the X-Men films went on, I kind of started to get a bit bored with him. he sort of lost his edge and became less interesting, and it became this thing of, why does every X-Men film have to have Wolverine? This film reminds me why Wolverine is so popular, why we love this character, and why we wanted films about him in the first place. And Hugh Jackman gets so much more to work with here than he ever has done before, and he really does own it in I would say a way that's comparable to how Ryan Reynolds owns Deadpool, or how I don't know, Heath Ledger owns the Joker. Like, he's that level of kind of perfect for his role. And also, I think this is the best that Patrick Stewart's ever been. In this film, Professor X has I guess it's Alzheimer's. He has a degenerative, like me, clearly right now, he has a degenerative brain disorder. And obviously with his superpowers, that is a massive complication, because you've got this disorder in a mind that is literally the most dangerous mind on the planet. But there are scenes just devoted to him, like, crying or, like, breaking down because he doesn't remember things, and it's really quite affecting. It genuinely works, and I think that's because they take the time to focus on these things here. The pacing never bothered me either. Sometimes slow pacing can be a problem, but because A, when the action comes, it really delivers, and B, because the character stuff was so strong here, I just completely gave in to the slow pacing here. And speaking of that action, boy is it good when it does happen. Obviously, a lot's been made of the fact that this is the first R-rated Wolverine film, and they make the decision not to use cool violence, but to use genuinely brutal, genuinely hard to watch violence. And I thought it worked really well. Like, these action sequences were quite unpleasant to watch. They were really just nasty, visceral, and, you know, unpleasant. And it was as sort of silly as that sounds for a mainstream superhero film, I thought it worked really well, and there were bits where I was flinching. And I think the other thing that worked well about the action was that because they didn't ever... It's the exact opposite. It's the antithesis of X-Men Apocalypse. If you think of the end of X-Men Apocalypse, Apocalypse is there in the middle of this city, stuff's blowing up everywhere, stuff flying around, loads of CGI stuff shooting at him, and in this it's just like Wolverine fighting a few dudes. It's much more restrained, but it's also much better choreographed, much better executed, and it has a real sense, more so than any superhero film I think I've ever seen, of peril and of stakes. What I mean by this is that where in most superhero films like the Avengers, you just get this sense that they're fighting the CGI army and they just are invincible. You're not worried about any of them. I worried about Wolverine in this film. He takes a lot of hits and his powers are fading, and he can't heal the same way he used to. It's not permanent anymore. It's getting worse as well. It's the other thing they keep saying. He's getting tireder, he's getting weaker. His claws don't even come out properly anymore. They get stuck and he has to yank them to get them all the way out. The film opens with him just getting beaten up. And I did every action sequence in this film, I felt like the heroes could die. And even if they weren't going to die, they were going to get hurt. And that made it so much more exciting, so much more suspenseful. And speaking of suspense, I think that there are some genuinely suspenseful standoffs in this. It obviously harkens back to westerns a lot, and there are moments that are kind of like standoffs, like classic western standoffs, that are genuinely quite tense. Most of that is because I think this film has a good villain. I know, a superhero film with a good villain. To be fair, there are three. There are three villains. There's the scientist, played by Richard E. Grant, who's kind of the main villain. I'm not talking about him. Then there's the sort of boss fight, this mystery character that a lot of people have had a problem with, and I'm going to address that later. There's him, but who I'm talking about is actually the henchman. The henchman in this film, he's, in a way, he is a henchman, but in another way, I think he is the main bad guy. He is sleazy, he is slimy, but he's also kind of charismatic. He gets screen time, which helps. MCU films could take note there. The villain has screen time, and he actually has a connection with Wolverine. They have a relationship that develops over the film. They have a dynamic, and that really does help. It helps when your hero and your villain actually care about each other, unlike something like Doctor Strange, where they barely even met. It really helps, and I think that it really gets you invested in the drama when you feel something towards the villain as well, and I did in this film. I thought it was a good villain. The aforementioned mystery CGI villain is a bit schlocky. It's the closest that this film gets to standard superhero film. I didn't mind because when you compare it to like The Wolverine, which for the most part tried to do the similar restrained superhero character driven thing, that film ended with a giant robot samurai and it was awful. This ends this sort of schlocky element in this mystery boss fight is nowhere near as silly as that, and I think he fits into the film better. I've heard some people say that it felt out of place. I can kind of see that. I didn't, and I actually thought it was a bit scary. It has like a Terminator vibe, and I thought it worked quite well. But whilst I would never say that those people are wrong, I didn't personally have a problem with this boss fight, but I could see why people would. But yeah, I generally really liked the main villain in this film, more so than any superhero film since The Dark Knight Rises. I think Bane was the last time I remember liking a supervillain this much. So yeah, all good stuff really. The only other thing I would mention is that the little girl is good. A lot of people have been very, very quick to praise her because I think when you have a child actress that isn't terrible, people like to latch on to that because it's so rare. I do think she's good, and I do think that their relationship is, as cliche as it might sound, it is the heart of the film, and I do think it works, and I did actually care about their relationship. So yeah, overall, I'm profusely positive about this film. I think it's one of the best superhero films I've seen in years. I think it is emotional. I think it is fantastically executed. I think the acting is great. I think the story is the best story a superhero film has had in a long time. There's no giant laser shooting in the sky thing here. It's like they thought the story first and then kind of figured out where action sequences would go and which characters they need, instead of thought of a story to suit the characters and action sequences they wanted, which is what so many others feel like. And I think that it's brave, it's gutsy, and when you think of things like Deadpool, that was obviously different for a superhero film. And this is different for a superhero film as well, in a completely different way though. Like they are two sides of the same coin. One of them is like making fun of the superhero genre, is making it as lighthearted as it can be and trying to be as fun and irreverent as possible. Whereas this is like a really serious, character-driven film. And it reminded me, the closest thing I can think of to it is probably The Last of Us. And I mean that as highest praise because I love The Last of Us. I think the relationships are really good. I think it is so emotionally affecting, and it did so many things that I really didn't expect it to do. Obviously, I can't spoil things, but there were at least 3 occasions in this film where I went, well, I didn't think you'd go for that, and it worked really well, and it has possibly the best ending image of any superhero film ever. Like, it's so perfect. I really was blown away by this film. If I had any problem, and I'm not sure I do, I might need to watch it again to decide if I think this, it's that there was a small part where I thought it kind of dragged a little. For the most part, I loved the slow, considerate pacing of this. And even then, I'm not sure. Maybe it felt like a certain event happens on this farm, and it felt like that was supposed to be the catalyst for all the action. Like, you'd done the slow burn and then everything was supposed to start ramping up, and instead what happened was this event happened, it sped up for a little bit, and then it slowed back down to ramp up again towards the end. And maybe that wasn't necessary, I don't know, I'd have to watch it again. But I find this film kind of annoying at the same time because it's only at the last Wolverine film that I realise I want more Wolverine films. Like, the last 2 I didn't really care for or care about. I didn't care about getting this film either. And now that I've had it, I want more Wolverine films, but we're not going to get any. It's like they went out on a bang. I just wish that they started and continued with a bang in the first place. But yes, love this film. Thoroughly recommend it, whether you like superhero films or not. I think if you like superhero films, it delivers. And if you don't like superhero films, I think it avoids so many of the big cliches of modern superhero films. There's no massive CGI army, no laser in the sky, no bland villain, no kind of overcrowding of characters, no kind of safe generic style. There's actual stakes, both emotionally and in terms of, like, threat. I really like it, and I think that it shows that you don't have to follow the Marvel pattern to make a great superhero film. I might even give it a 10. I don't know yet. I maybe need to see it again, but please go see Logan. Doesn't matter if you don't like superhero films, just go see Logan. Thank you, and bye-bye.